one now too. Okay, thank you. That'd be great. Okay, thank you. Oh, better screen. Oh, that's much better. Full screen.
There you go. Go. Welcome, everybody. My name is Yaguihine Oaks. I am the Executive Director of the American Indian Community House. We are gathered here in... Go. Welcome. It's echoing. Oh. So we are gathering here to celebrate our elders, to honor them, and to listen to their stories of our living culture. Today we have Reggie Caesar, and a large part of his family are here with us. Welcome. Thank you, everybody, Nyawa Goa, everybody, for showing up and taking this time to sit, listen, and share. Say go, Reggie. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Or should I be the official one?
Yes.
I'm official for 2 seconds, yeah. So, Gwingbanao, Nindashizi, Chief Reggie, Ninunjiaye, Metinaka Kwa, Siwanahaki, Na Wellatampum Wunda Pui. So, greetings, as Chief Reggie, or I'm Chief of the Cherokee Clan, the Metinakok tribe of Long Island, of Siwanahaki. Yeah. And I see I have all my relatives here, but I have my son Tecumseh, the Wampum guy here. And I think Nick was on a while, but he's coming from way across in Israel, so I don't know if he's still here. Just switched to still here. There we are. Nakoma here, and Sarah and Sequan, and the Algonquin people are saying, that means spring, yeah. So that's my little granddaughter. It's great to be here. Great to talk to everybody. Wow. So I have a lot of books and stuff like that. And a long story, but I won't take the rattle out and do the long story thing to come to saying, we don't want to hear the long story. We tell stories and I do that. But it is an interesting part of history that I just ended up being plopped into. So I was born in 1951, long time ago. And actually, when I was born, well, we were colored. Explain that. So on my mother's side, Metinakok, Wampanoag, Chief, so see how far I go back. Chief James Wild Pigeons was my great uncle. And I didn't know him, of course, but I did know Chief James, Chief John Waters.
But this was...
Yeah, oh yeah, that's right. Chief.
That's Chief Wild Pigeon.
Chief Wild Pigeon, Chief of the Metinakok, and elected Chief of the Montaukets. And his father was the first, he was the beginner. So when I was younger, my mother's certificates, because she was Metinakok and Montauk, she had colored when I went to race, because at that time, no Indians were born, if you know what I mean. So good way they could, and then she had one that was Negro, I think. One type of paper, baptism paper, was Negro, and the other one was colored. And my father just had Negro on his, and actually on my...
He was Blackfoot.
He was Blackfoot, yeah. They were Northern Blackfoot. But that was one of the ways they erased them. So I was our land, as you might know, was Long Island. From tips of Long Island City out to Smithtown or Jamestown, that was all that. My family, we were from Northern Boulevard, around that Little Neck Parkway type of a thing there. And that's a whole bunch of stories that has to do there.
I'm going to mention.
Yeah. about the land that they eminent domain took away. Northern Boulevard, all y'all that live in New York know that Northern Boulevard is pretty wide now, right? Like it was a horse and buggy lane. So one of the things that I actually kind of jumping ahead experienced when I was younger, my mother came home and our family, our clan around there was Walter Hageman, who was Sagamore. He was my great uncle. And Raymond, Uncle Raymond, and Uncle Elmer, and my mother. So we had a strip along Northern Boulevard. So they called us out to have, they called them out to have a meeting. And basically my mother said when they got out there, they had money and they just threw 75, 75, 75, 75. We're taking your land. Just, you can sign it or not. We don't really care. We're just giving you $75. That's it. So that was how they took a strip of our land that was there, eminent domain. They just, it's a wide Northern Boulevard. Yeah, so you got a nice wide Northern Boulevard. The land came wide from us. So it was interesting growing up. I actually lived in East Elmhurst when I was born there. And just before, I think I started school about 6. So 6, we moved to Long Island City. There was some interesting things, some things growing up that was kind of like, okay. And I just kind of took everything at ease. For one thing, I had some native jewelry that my mother had made for me, you know, necklace and stuff like that. And my mother had some native jewelry, but she said, never wear this outside the house. My grandfather lived in Connecticut, so we went up there, I could wear it. And every native always wears a medicine bag, right? Yeah, so I had to wear a medicine bag. Wasn't the best smelling thing, but I guess it worked. I made it, so I guess it worked. So that was like part of the thing that we're always was doing that. And then, so my mother, very open, very giving, but would take nothing from nobody. Their situation was really bad. They lived in a house, the father died, the mother disappeared. So it was my mother, her older brother, and a younger brother. What's that? Oh yeah, that's right. We found that out recently. That, no, Clarence, yeah, my grandfather was a drum maker. Well, this I found out that he was a drum maker, and he made it for the tribe, the family. He made all the drums there. So the government decided that they were orphans and that they would have to send them away to Indian school because they couldn't find anybody that could take care of them, which was interesting considering all of us lived along the same area. You guys know what I mean? So that was kind of an interesting thing there. But I must say that a priest came along, a Catholic priest came along and told them if they became Catholics, that they would be wards of the state and they wouldn't be able to move many place. So they did that, and my mother and her 2 brothers were Catholics until they died. They remained like Catholics. And mysteriously, they found an aunt who lived just like 1 door away from where they were living. So they grew up with them, Aunt Sue and Aunt Oni, exactly. And actually, the Davises lived a little bit further down. So Harry Wallace, his mother, knew my mother and everything. So this is the drum that I just got back that Clarence Hageman made. Yeah. So that was a kind of an interesting thing, you know. And Jeff, somebody from the community, just took and he went to some museum, some market in the museum, and they had him a drum, and they said Matinecock made. So he just something told him to buy it. So he bought it and took and said, "Oh, Chief, I got a present for you." And then other information that I got, and it was like, "Oh wait, he made drums at that time." And I put one and one and one and one, two together, and that was like, "Oh my goodness, the drums so finally came back to the family." So I found that like a pretty interesting thing, you know. But we all know being skins that that type of stuff happens to us all the time. Not all the time, but when we don't least expect it. Yeah. So I grew up in Long Island City. And then tell them what I thought when we came to Long Island City was the first time that we lived in the projects, and the people next door, I couldn't figure out, they don't have any native stuff around because they were German. Then I realized that just most people who want to visit had native stuff in their house. You guys know what I mean? Who doesn't have regalia that they put up in their house, right? You got your rattle, where you're gonna put it, you're hanging on the wall, right? Different things like that. So then I realized that the reason that they didn't have was because they weren't native. And then I realized that most of the people we went to visit were natives, because you didn't let other people know that you were native. So you were just colored at that time, or whatever you could go for. It's funny, but not funny. My mother, I've heard her say everything. When anybody would ask, what do you know, what are you? She'd say, well, what do you think I am? That would be the answer. And anything from German to Italian, I don't think native. Everybody was saying, she said, oh, how did you know? So that was like the common thing I had like that. But I did notice that my mother was kind of friendly with some people. Okay. When we lived in Corona, the people that lived downstairs were the Barneys. And she was really friendly with Steve Barney. He was the father, Steve Barney. Like kids, you know. And then later on, I found out we were cousins. They're from Shinnecock and Matinecock, Shinnecock. Then she was really friendly. My father had like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 siblings.
No, more than, no. I'll count.
Yeah,
two.
well, a lot of aunts and uncles, right? So Aunt Daisy, who is still one of our favorites, right, T? Her husband, my mother was really friendly with Charles Barron. They were like kids. They would poke each other.
There were 7 of
Seven.
them, 7 children.
My father had 7. So, yeah. 7. So, and I figured, oh, it's because he's a nice guy. You know, that's why he was a funny guy. Everybody liked him. You know, she was really friendly with him. And then, as I said, see Barney downstairs. And then I realized that they were cousins. They were native cousins. So that's how, you know, she was. Otherwise, she was tough. Let's put it that way. She was tough. And in those days, if you were, oh, I can say it, if you were colored in any sense of the mean, you know what I mean? And a woman, you were a target for predators. If you looked halfway good, you know what I mean? So I can remember times when she would tell me, we'd walk in the streets and my instruction was, when we're outside, you don't ask me anything. If I say run, you run. If I say sit, you say sit. And I can remember times when my mother would tell me, go down to the corner. And I would like make a beeline down to the corner. And then I'd see a bunch of people around and my mother just walked back. When I was older, I found out what happened to a couple of the times. She liked to carry a Coca-Cola bottle filled with sand in the bag that she had. And one guy got a headache. She said, oh, he must have had a heart attack because you hit him on the head with a Coca-Cola bottle. And then another guy was trying to grab her Costa going to the subways, and she went through, told me, go ahead. And then I heard screaming, hollering. The guy was hollering. I didn't know what happened. So she went through. He came from behind her, and then she reached around, grabbed his tie, tied her around one of the things, and took out a knife and was making him squirm around. She just wanted to make him learn a lesson. That wasn't a lesson. She was really a kind of tough woman. And the same woman was very friendly with Charles Barron and Steve Barney. They were like kids together. And of course, they had native stuff in the house and the whole thing there. And I realized, we never went any place or said anything about being native. So that was a whole interesting thing growing up. We went out and visited the relatives on Northern Boulevard, and went into some of the houses there. And most of the time, there were not too many kids, you know. So later on, my uncle, Walter lived down here. Hello? Oh, can you hear me?
Hi.
Yeah.
Sorry, can I ask you a
So
question?
Walter lived down here. Sure, plenty of questions.
Okay. I'm just wondering, you mentioned you had regalia and so forth. When you were young, how did you practice our traditions while living in the city under such restrictions? And who taught
The
you?
closest. Oh, that's another thing. When I was really young, the closest that we did was Thanksgiving. I knew that it was Nanawa. And actually, Mady and Mady Waters and some of the family did Nanawa. So we knew that the Nanawa was happening, but we did our Thanksgiving and we kind of like, it was a little twist towards a Nanawa type of a thing. Yeah, there was a longhouse, but there was controversy. We never went to the longhouse. It was like a controversy within the tribe. So I heard of this stuff. My mother told me about this stuff, but basically it was nothing outside the house, and we didn't do too much about the whole thing. And when I went to college, about the age getting ready to go to college, just before I met Tony, I started finding out more and more about the native, when my mother passed over, just before she passed over, she told me a bunch of stuff, but then I started finding out more and more about the native community. That, what I knew I was Matinacock, but I didn't know what that meant. There was no context what it meant. And I knew I met an older guy who was nice, kind of funny towards me, John Waters, and Walter Hageman, Uncle Walter, as I said, he was Sagamore. He was the title that I had. He was Sagamore of the Cherokee clan. And in his house, they had a whole bunch of native stuff there. And then when I came, they had me play with it. You could touch anything, you could play with anything, just like that. Don't break it. You could touch it. You could break it. Tell me. So that was the only way I really made the contact with it. And I think one of the people that majorly started the community house and bringing things back. At one point, Tony said that, you should teach these guys something about native dancing customs and stuff like that. So I was like, well, what I can teach them, they can learn very quickly because it's really not too much. So we went to one of Lewis's classes, Lewis Massey. We went to, yeah.
The boys were,
Yeah, they were little. Actually, the truth of the matter is, I went with Nakoma.
No, Tecumseh was in the stroller.
Oh yeah, that's right. When Nakoma went first, Nakoma and I went first, and then because we visited Gene and Arnold. The truth comes out. We had friends that lived around the corner from the community house, Gene and Arnold, and it's a web that you wouldn't believe. So we'd visit them, and then we go to Louis' class, or we go, with the old community house was there. They were at 712 Broadway. Yeah, they were at 712 Broadway. So around the back on Lafayette was where the community house. So we go there to the classes that Louis did. And then the Tecumseh found out. And he was like, how come Nick's going? So he was really little. So he came with us in this stroller. He would come in the stroller. And we sit at the drum and we learn the songs with Louis and them. And that was like really our introduction. I have to thank Louis Massey and the Thunderbirds for really, and Alan, Louis Massey, for really like encouraging us and being good to the kids. And I always remember that Alan saying, you know, if they ever give the kids any problems, just tell me, you know, anytime they want anything, just tell me. So Alan has really, really, really been nice.
And Nicoma was at Native Ed.
Oh yeah, and Nicoma was at the Native Ed program, which that was really nice in those days.
Wanda Hunter was in charge.
Yeah, yeah, Wanda Hunter was in charge of it. They did field trips. They went places, they had picnics. They did a lot of events. So, and that's like stories that lead from that. A lot of really good events, a lot of stuff we learned. So that was that was the thing. We played the drum. And,
Dad, what about the medicine that your mom used to teach you?
Oh, well, it was more like just follow along with me and do. And as I said, I thought everybody went to visit people when they had babies, because babies are kind of cute. They smelled funny, but they were cute, you know? I also thought that when sick people need people to visit them because it makes them feel better, right? Then I found out way later, and there was another thing, and I thought that my mother and father wanted a girl. So, not that they dressed me funny, but one of my cousins, Ann, I can say, my father's side, Ann, she used to be at the house a lot, you know, and she was always good to me. Like she would spoil me. If I wanted candy or something, she would give it to me. And then I found out she's very old now. Well, better not let her hear that. She's older than me. That she had gone to a doctor when she was little and the doctor did something and hurt her. And so she refused to go to a doctor anymore. So every time she got sick, she would come to my mother's house. So she was there most of the time at my mother's house, you know. And I never put two and two together, you know. It's like, oh, people have babies, you go see them. Babies are cute. People are sick, you go see them. Of course, because you feel better when somebody visits you and you're sick, right? And then I realized, I didn't realize this until way later on, and somebody said, so you realize your mother was a medicine woman. I was like, no, that makes sense now why we were visiting that stuff. And that's why I had the real that stinky thing on my neck, stinky back on my neck. And my mother had a jar of like spices and herbs. I knew she used a lot of it for Nanawa, Thanksgiving. She was like making pies and stuff, but I didn't know that, you know, a lot of it was medicine. And she did massage on, you know, people's shoulders and backs and stuff like that. But everybody does that, right? If you got a hurt back, you go visit somebody, they massage your back, right? It seems like everybody does that. So that's the thing. And years later, I found out more and more about the stories that were happening. One of the things which really I said, okay, no, she really is a medicine woman. On my father's side, there were, and this again, two of his, okay, what were they? My father's Martha and Bertha. So there were my grandfather's aunts, I believe.
You mean Martha Rosebone?
Yeah, Martha and Bertha Rosebone, and they were in New York. No, they were in Terrytown, and they were in New York, but they were Blackfoot, and they had like 88 acres outside of Minnesota. And I found out that my mother, they really liked my mother from the elders. And then I found out they were medicine women. We don't know how they got all the land and the money. I was never like excited about that. And actually, they had to change their name. We found the documents because we knew their name was Rosebone, but they changed it to Skanks. For what reason we don't know, but they changed that. And they actually wanted to give my mother a big piece of the land, but she didn't want to cause conflict within the family, you know. So I'm assuming, I know that they were close, that they traded medicine stuff back and forth. You know what I mean? So that was part of the whole thing there.
Ted,
So, yeah.
don't forget to tell them that they had to be considered midwives, so that way they
Oh.
could hide the medicine.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, I forgot about it. They were midwives because otherwise they would be considered witches, and we all know what happens to them. So they were, and that's why my mother probably talked with them, because I guess she didn't just like going to visit people that were sick. So that was a yeah. So it was, growing up was interesting. I was kind of like a space cadet, so I always like just said, okay, whatever happens, I'll go with it. You know, that sort of thing. And really bringing Nakoma to the community house, and then to coming along, you know, with the carriage. That was when I really started to things started to make a little bit more sense at that setting.
We studied with Grace Nolan.
Yeah, well, before that, I met Bill Tallfeather at one of the community house events. I met Bill Tallfeather, and we like met quite a few times. And he was telling me stuff about the Niagara Couture, the traditional Cherokee community.
Mhm.
So, hey, and the Native Ed program, remember that? The kids went to that. We had great times. We went on really great trips, and we had great times. And we went up to the Mohawk Museum,
Yes.
and Ray Fadden, right?
Sure.
Yeah,
Should I get his stuff?
with some of it. Well, we went up there, and we were with the kids. It's fun, but it's like 99 bottles of beer on the wall come from New York up to the museum with the kids. And so we got up there, and I had to take a break. I was like, okay, you guys got the kids. You got the kids. I'm sitting down. The museum was fantastic. There was stuff on the ceiling all over the place. I'm sitting down. I'm like, okay, no kids. Wow, this is really an amazing place, you know? So then this older guy comes up to me and says, she liked the stuff here. And I said, yeah, this is amazing. I love this stuff. And he said, you want to go for a walk? So he comes out and he shows me like wigwams in the back, you know. So wow, that's, you know, all woodland, the Mohawk, woodland type stuff. And then he says, I got something for you, but one thing I got for you, and the other ones you can take and tell me which ones you want. So
He signed it to me.
it was a present. So he really started me thinking. I don't know if this shows up. Does it show up? It's kind of small. But anyway, he made a map of, or a paper of over 100 gifts from the First Nations people. Everything from teepees to hammocks, longhouses, tobacco, canoes, the eagle, of course. And it was like, this is like tight with just all kinds of drawings of things. And they so gifts for First Nations people that you wouldn't even think about. Corn, beans, squash, of course we know that. I mean, that they didn't know that back then. You know, lima beans, all types of gourds, snow goggles, which we know, right? The snow goggles was something that we used. The relatives up north used them. So all types of things. So he had this map, and he said, no, he said, I'm gonna bring out, this is something you should have. So he gifted that to me. Then he brought out some other stuff. He said, you might want to buy some of these. So we had a great time. And I then realized who he was after I got on the bus. But that was like one of the great experiences that I had, thanks to the Native Ed, program. And then, as I said, community house, I met grandfather Bill Tellfeather, and he actually told me about the Niag Couture traditional Cherokee community. And to this day, I'm active. I try to be active. I'm part of that community. So that was another thing. And then Mantoka's not here, but how the story twined together. I had said before that Tecumseh, well, there's mostly Nick and myself. We go early and we visit our friends that were around the other side of the community house. And so the other Reggie did Tai Chi. And my Tai Chi elder sister was Jean Kwok. And her husband, Arnold Berger, he was a great artist. Remember him, T?
Yeah.
Yeah. He was an officially well-known great artist. In fact, I'm going to brag about, you guys know the bubblehead that you see now? The statues with the big giant bubblehead type thing? He did the first one, and he had one of his friends was the model for it, Albert Einstein. And he did a bronze casting of the first bubble, before anybody thought about it, bubblehead of Albert Einstein. And he has like paintings he had.
It's a bust.
A bust, that's what it was. It was a little figure there. And he used to tell me about, here's how the circle comes around. This guy I used to hang out with, and he was an artist too, and they used to talk and party and everything, drink. And he said he knew a lot of stories and he was really talented. Sometimes you got to meet him. His name is Swifty. I was like, Swifty? He said, yeah, and he has a daughter and a son. Well, Matoka Swift Eagle and her brother Powhatan. That was them. So her father was, so this circle kept on twisting around itself and getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. So that, and we learned a lot from them. And then also we drummed with the Four Winds, Arnold and Grace Greenberg. I don't know if some of you might remember them.
Grace's Mohawk.
Grace was Mohawk. Yeah, Grace was Mohawk. And Nicky was on that drum. He was young. He was a kid. He was a kid on that drum.
Not our Nicky.
Nicky, yeah.
Not our Nicky.
Not our Nicky. The other Nicky. And Joe
You
Lee.
have pictures?
Oh.
I don't know.
I don't know if we have pictures of that.
And Preston.
Preston was on that drum too. That was a long time.
Preston Tompahoe?
Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
That was
so. It seems like you in your lifetime, maybe you don't realize it so much, but you in one way or in all ways decolonized your family back to Native traditions, it seems. It seemed like just the way Tecumseh is. He's very knowledgeable. It seems like he brought them on that journey back onto the red road, right?
Yeah. We just did. We didn't think anything about it, and we just did. And T had mentioned this, so you guys are gonna know my other identity now. So officially, I am also Sensei Reggie Caesar, Shiatsu Sensei, New York State licensed massage therapist, one of the founders of the Shiatsu department at the Swedish Institute, disciple of Wataru Ohashi, the founder of Ohashiatsu, and a student of Masunaga Sensei, Dr. Shishota Masunaga, the founder of Zen Shiatsu. So the other Reggie, I'm a Shiatsu teacher. And at this point, things have come together. Shiatsu is a Japanese modality, massage thing. When I studied it, it was not legal in the state of New York. It was not classified. And the government decided that it had to be classified as something. So they were up in the air thinking about doing it. I was really into the Shiatsu and martial arts. So my friend said, you better do something to cover yourself, because I knew people like Charles Barron. Anybody know Charles Barron? You might not know Charles Barron, but you probably will know the group. What was the group he was with? Curtis Leeway, and then Charles. Uh,
He's a councilman in Brooklyn.
yeah, but before that,
Oh,
when he was a radical guy,
Well, he was quite radical.
he was with a group.
In the Panthers, or
He was with the Black Panthers, not the television one. And also, I knew people that were with the American Indian movement. So, being that you know people that are in good places, but they'll cut off your head just to spite them. You know what I mean? So that actually made me go to massage school, a real legitimate massage school. And then shiatsu became a big thing. And then I became department head, blah, 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 and the whole thing. So years of that. So that was a major part of it. Where's the book?
which one?
Oh, which one? That's right. So I've been very fortunate. I'm in a bunch of books, but I remember this, Yvonne Beamer.
Yeah, she wrote that one. You're in
She
there.
wrote that. And
Yeah.
this was one of the books that I was in. Really good book for kids to take and learn about. Not because I'm in it, but it tells you about Native people that were here in New York that are real people that you were seeing. And it tells you about famous people, that you'll see. Like me. No. It tells you about.
A little higher?
Hmm?
Can you hold the book up a little higher?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think.
Yeah, Yvonne Beamer was the one that did this.
Now Yvonne
Did-
Bennett.
Not
My-
Yvonne Dennis. I'm sorry, Yvonne Dennis.
My
Oh,
daughter's in the cover.
that's right. Yeah.
Yeah, she's a little girl
Yeah. Back in the day,
back
right?
in the day.
Back in the day, right? Yeah. So that was one of like the really great things that I did. That I was very fortunate to do. And another book, which kind of went a whole nother thing, was I was in this book, All Common Ground, The Blacks Changing the Faces of America.
Only it talks about you being a native.
Only it talks about me being, it has a whole thing of Native, because one of my students, and that's what T and I was talking about this. So having Sensei Reggie as a teacher, that's the other Reggie. It's showing the other, I don't know, can they see the picture of that? That's the other Reggie at the Swedish Institute, the Shiatsu Sensei. But T was talking about that, and Tecumseh also, having Sensei Reggie, you get good lessons because I'd follow the curriculum, of course. Well, I made a lot of it. But during the break, the students that really wanted to find out stuff found out that they could butter me up by getting me a chocolate muffin and a cup of coffee. And there would be no break, but I tell you everything that was not on the curriculum. And usually part of it was like, oh, so what are you guys doing this weekend? I'm like, well, there's a powwow. What's a powwow? You've never gone to a powwow? You should come to the powwow. So a lot of people from the Swedish Institute came to the powwow, and a lot of people that were Native American, when nobody would say anything, the same thing, they wouldn't say anything, they wouldn't know it, they're from all different places. They'd hear, oh yeah, well, I'm Cherokee, or I'm Choctaw, I'm Taino. And I said, well, you should come to the powwow. So a lot of my students came to the powwows because of that.
We were talking about maybe John Stanley Moore's.
Oh yeah, there's a. So they would, when he was 99.
and
So-
also through the WIA program, a lot of natives ended up going to the Swedish Institute
Yeah.
there because it was the way it was set up. It was something that you could learn and trade easily. So a lot of students have come up to me at powwow and been like, "Oh, your dad was my sensei." and they get really excited because it was good for them to. They would say how good it was to see a native teacher that they were learning from. You know, like seeing themselves
Yeah.
in a college setting.
Yeah. I've been really fortunate. I don't know if this picture, but this is Chief John, Mary Waters and Chief John standing. He was chief of the
Take it
Matinicock.
out of the plastic there.
Oh, yeah. It's old. So he was chief of the Matinicock, but he was also elected chief of the Montauk's. Don't look too much. Elected chief of the Montauk's. Yeah. And like I said, I knew him. He was like 90 something. I knew him, and it was like, hey, kid. Yeah. So we talked a little bit, but not too much. But he was always nice to me. Yeah.
And here's Chief Wild Pigeons.
Oh, you don't talk about all this stuff. We'll be here forever. And his
Chief Wild Pigeons.
Chief Wild Pigeons papers, because also they were both Chief James and Chief James Wild Pigeon and John Waters were also elected chief of the Montauk's. So that was a whole thing. It was interesting that native medicine or traditional Chinese medicine, Japanese medicine, and then I had to study Chinese medicine because they weren't recognizing it, and that's a whole nother thing, actually led me to finding out more about the stuff I should have learned when I was young about Native American medicine. You know, I studied with a number of people. One of the people that I studied with is a medical doctor. He's recognized at that, Louis Mendel Madrone, MD, PhD. But he did Lakota and Cherokee body work, you know, and things that we would never think of. I'm sure you guys know chiropractic, right? People going to chiropractors. Well, there's a branch of body work that osteopathy, and American osteopathy comes from Native American body work and the methods that the different tribes did. High velocity adjustments from the Apaches and the Zuni and Hopis, they did like elongating the muscles and putting things back in place, just like you would make ceramic pieces and pottery. So I mean, it's documented, but they don't say too much about that type. Of course, herbs, that we all use that. So it's been a long, interesting thing, long, interesting journey that we had. And I must say that I'm smiling because the Silver Clouds, Kevin and the Silver Clouds were definitely a large part of it. As you know, Nicoma was on the drum. And so we spent many a times going to powwows with them, you know, and up at Mohegan Sun.
And we were every weekend or every other weekend with
Oh yeah, with Grace and
Arnold.
With Grace and Arnold from the Four Winds drum. Yeah.
They were teaching us drumming and singing.
Yeah.
The whole family.
Yeah. So when the kids were younger, we did a lot of singing with them, you know, but it was more like hanging out with relatives. So it was like a party every weekend. We go there, rain, snow, good weather, bad weather. We'd go outside, we play snowballs, or we'd sit in and have hot chocolate when we finished playing on the drum. So it was really like a great, you know, life. It was a great life for me.
Dad, I have a question.
Sure.
So Melissa was talking about when, you know, you decolonizing or re-indigenizing your life and your family, you know, obviously you named both me and Nicoma native names. What do you feel was like the big difference between before the Native American Freedom of Religion Act, growing up being Native, and then like now afterwards? Ooh. And I know like the Native Ed program was everybody, you know, after bringing their cultures together, and then, you know, from that, we're able to learn to use that as a stepping stone towards learning our own specifically Northeast and Algonquin culture. But what do you feel how do you feel the Native American Freedom of Religion Act affected like your ability to be Native?
Ooh, yeah. Well, the one thing was language. You know, that was a real major thing, the language.
Because your grandfather spoke.
Yeah,
Your
not
grandfather was.
not Papa Paul, but
No.
yeah,
Clarence. Hagan.
Clarence, yeah, he spoke, and it got down to speaking American English, that becoming like a tribal language and people within that. But really, we spoke two languages and not English. And English was like the last language, you know, Kelso, Algonquin, and Lenape. And that was the last thing. So the language was one thing. Of course, the customs, you know, ceremonies were not happening, you know. Even exchanging the tobacco was like, we knew that was something you could do, but you might get in trouble doing that. So basically, the freedom of religion, I kind of opened up. Now you could talk about it. Now you could take and meet with other people and say things out in public. But before it was like nothing.
We couldn't have a traditional wedding.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. That was something.
We got married in 76.
Yeah, we couldn't have a traditional wedding. We had kind of close to that, ironically, because a relative, we don't even know how they were related. He was a little bit Native American. I think it was my father's god sister's something. And he was a Christian minister, but we were like, well, we don't know where we're going to get married. And when he heard we were getting married, he said, oh, well, I'm going to be there, of course. But he said, you're not going to have another minister because you're a relative. So he stopped the service so that he'd come and be at the service, you know, and be a reverend at the service. But traditional marriage, forget about it. No,
It was outlawed.
that's illegal. That's like not happening. We all would have got bracelets with that happening. So that was part of it. I was lucky that I remembered and recognized things, but it was like none of it was happening. Oh, even like the earring. And here's a new thing. If you have the mass, if you have the stud, it works better. If you have the dangling, they always get caught in the end and pulling your ear on it. When I worked, so as a massage therapist, as a shiatsu expert, blah, 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 I was a consultant for the New York State Education Department Medicine Massage Division without the earring. You get what I mean? They let me know. That ain't happening. So the stud was, yeah. So I didn't have an earring at that time because they didn't care. You had to look like a clean government guy, you know?
I have a question. I have another question.
Sure.
I'm just wondering, you are the Turkey chief or the chief of the Turkey clan.
Mm-hmm.
What are the roles and responsibilities, and how do you still carry them on now? And yeah, when did you start? Also, yeah.
Oh, when was I made chief? Ooh. We have to look at that. Because even our whole introduction was an interesting thing. I knew a lot of my cousins, but I knew that I didn't know a lot of my cousins. I just knew who they were. Some I knew I thought who they were. And Chief Osceola, who's the principal chief, he was doing a protest at the Museum of Teddy Roosevelt with the slave on one side and the skin on the other side. And he's blazing the way on a horse, which these two other guys are probably leading the way anyway, you know what I mean?
Natural History Museum.
Yeah.
That's it, yeah, the Natural History Museum. So I went to that because I said, oh, this is like really jive. You know, he got the horse and they're probably showing him where to go because he didn't even come from the neighborhood, from the area. You know what I mean? And I met Chief Osceola Townsend there. And I had something native on, maybe a choke or something like that. And he said he's from Minnetonka. I said, oh, I'm Minnetonka. He said, you're Minnetonka? I said, yeah, I'm a Hagerman Waters. I said, if you're Minnetonka, you should come to my house. So he gave me his card. And Tony and I went for tea at his house, at Osceola's house, in Queens. And he was the chief of Minnetonka. So I mentioned some names, and he said, oh, I seem to know the name. So he called one of the cousins who was my brother's age, and they hung out together. And she said, hey, Reggie, you're grown up now, because I was like a little kid. Yeah. And he said, oh, Osceola is your cousin. You guys are cousins. So that kind of like let it off. And then from there, I said, oh boy, I really felt more comfortable. And then he said, well, you know that your uncle was the leader of the Cherokee clan. It was the Sagamore of the Cherokee clan. He's the principal chief. He's also Cherokee, the same blood, same line. He said, but this is something you should think about. You should do this, and you think about it. So that kind of like started me off. Then I had to really get seriously into it, and he taught me a lot. Bill Tallfeather taught me a lot. Ray Harold from the Couture, we're still in contact with, and learned a lot. And I learned some stuff from Louis Madrone, and Frank, guided me in some of the stuff. So I was very fortunate that pieces kind of came together after being separated. And then Tom Porter, Tecumseh's buddy, right? Tecumseh? So
Yep.
Yeah.
He used to take me and show me the different medicines, the different plants.
Yeah.
Can you talk about what it was like to be able to learn the language, and how was that like when you're like, you've taken on the lead of bringing that back to the tribe, the language and some of the teachings? What was that like to be able to like learn the language and then you bringing that back to the tribe?
We're still in the process of getting it back to the tribe. I think, I know, because with the shiatsu, I speak very little Japanese now, but my teachers would speak in English, but also they would speak Japanese. And I realized certain things they would not translate, they'd make us translate in terms of theories, esoteric theories that became reality, medical theories that were reality. And then I realized that it was the same thing that was happening with the natives, that there is inherited knowledge that we know, but if you keep the door open, the ancestors, they're not going to be speaking English. Tap into that. And I found that really made a difference in my understanding how it was. And then it's like, wow, if the language is gone, then the people can be considered extinct. And you won't be able to get the essence of what the ancestors knew. So not the specifics, but the essence of what it knew, how they felt when they walked on the earth, their connection. So I found the language to be like really important with that. Trying to bring it back to, trying to learn it the best I can and bring it back what I can. And we have a good thing, but we have a hard thing because we have two different, languages that were spoke in our tribe. But yeah, so that's my goal, to take and do that, and being able to say the prayers, even just the morning prayers in the language that the elders were speaking. That's like really a gratifying and intense thing to know that you're keeping that going forward. Yeah.
Can you talk about when they expanded Northern Boulevard, that that there was actually our burial grounds.
Yeah.
Burial grounds was there, and
Yeah.
that they when they took that land, that they took our ancestors and uprooted them, and put them in a mass grave. But 2 years ago, we were able to use NAGPRA, Native American Graves Protection Act, to actually get one of our relatives back. Can you talk about what was how how did that feel, and like what were your thoughts growing, knowing that you were able to bring back one of our ancestors whose body part had been taken, and put them back in the earth 2 years ago? What was that like for you?
It was actually, well, the whole thing, it was, and there's even pieces that I think not known. It was definitely magical and definitely spiritual. Um, so the Zion Church is the one that's the one in charge of the ground, and that was, my mother was actually a member of the Zion Church out there. So they have a young reverend out there, and she's really nice, really nice. After 2 seconds, we're like, oh, this is a good person, you know. And I knew it was something that we were doing that day that was a real good thing. I was like, kind of like, this is like kind of intense and good, but it's like, I think Harry had mentioned that, you never think of a ceremony to rebury someone, to have to rebury a relative. Like that was like unheard of, something like that. But I knew it was good because the Reverend and I were talking, because she didn't know me. I'm like, so what's, how you doing? Blah, blah, blah. My family used to belong to the church. And as we were talking, we saw a flock of birds like just come and circle and circle and like stay and then fly away. And we looked at each other like, did you see that? And she's like, yeah, did you see that? And I get goosebumps from that. So you knew that the messengers, it was coming. One of the things that, so when we were doing the ceremony, reburying, it's like, that was like good but intense. Yeah, it was on, well, the church is on Matinacock land. I mean, she knows that. One of the things, she took me to the side, and when we were going across to get to where the grave was, there were stones that were coming across, and she said that's where Hannah Jane Waters is buried. My great grandmother was like buried there. So some of the didn't even have markers and graves. I mean, she knew that she was there. So it was good but intense, but it really was like, oh, people are coming back. And so that we can still remember that our people are coming back and we're still here. And it was no accident the way that the birds were making circles that day around that. She looked up and she was like, I got to tell him, hey, do you see what I see? Because this is like really something. So yeah, it's good to be able to connect and to remember and to be able to pass on some of this stuff, to know like it's like we're still here. We have been here. We are still here, and that some of us, we're still connected to the earth, and the earth still, I know that our earth feels that, That's why, again, being able to take and say your morning prayers or any prayers in the language makes that connection that was there stronger, and travels up. Yeah. So that's a good thing to take and do. Yeah.
Can you talk about your deciding to name your granddaughter Sequan? What was the reasoning behind that specific name? And how does it relate to the language?
Oh, because it's Muncie, Delaware, or Lenape, and it means spring. And it just came to me. I mean, I had heard the word already. I knew the word, and then I was like, spring, a new beginning, a new time. You know, flowers start to come up and to spring out. So I said, that would be a good name. And I asked Tony, I said, Tony, what do you think about that name? Yeah. And we just decided to do spring,
New beginning,
a new beginning, new beginning.
emerging language.
Yeah. So it is. It's a new beginning, bringing the language back, keeping it going, you know, forward. You know, we did it with Tecumseh and we did it with Nakoma. So we were very fortunate. We said, well, yeah, that'll be a new thing. It means spring though, but you know, like she loves flowers. She's like forever picking every type of little flower. I don't know what that's what that's about, but she's they're always like stopping her from picking flowers every time she goes out someplace. She like picks flowers, which sometimes it's okay, but sometimes you can't pick the flowers in Israel. You know, so they go. So yeah, so that was yeah. The name just came to me.
Do you remember telling me that when you chose that name that your idea was that if she was to learn the language while she was young, that she could bring the language back by being one of the first fluent speakers?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
We speak to her.
We speak to her in Lenape, yeah, because over the phone, you know. When we go there, we speak to her in Lenape. And so I often do programs to come to myself for little people, kids, children, you know. And one of the things that I feel is that that's a good way to take and make them realize that the Indians that you see on television might be real or might be playing it, but there are real people that are Native American, and they've given a lot. So I did a program for Sarah, my daughter-in-law's class when I was there. One of my daughter-in-law's class. Well, you know the word daughter-in-law. I get that mixed up anyway. I can't leave. So I was very touched when Sarah in Israel said that all my little fans, the first thing they were saying, how is Chief Reggie in America? When they heard about, you know, everything happening, all of them were concerned about Chief Reggie. They were like, how is Chief Reggie in America? And that kind of brings back that point that we have new generations coming up. And if we take and tell them some of the truth, some of the things that we did, you know, and let them know where these things come from. Hey, yeah, and we all know that sustainable food, corn, beans, and squash, right? So we start letting the kids know about that they will just take it in. And hopefully we'll make them think a little bit about the First Nations people, the Native people that were here, and hopefully we'll make them realize are here and how the connection to the earth is happening, you know, that we all still have the connection to the earth. And it's not a magical thing. It is our mother. It is the earth. It does give us everything, you know. So I think that that's a good thing to let people, you know, the young generation hear that we have language that's alive. It's a very descriptive, very effective language. And you can connect to the earth, you know, through the stuff that we do. Yeah. So that's, you know, part of the thing there. Oh my goodness. Any questions?
What's your traditional name in your language, and what does it mean?
Herb dancer, or dancers with herbs. Then that's herb person. That's herb dancer. Yeah, that's basically.
How do you pronounce it?
Oh, herb dancer.
Oh,
in Lenape, still working on translating that. That is a hard thing there, but it translates into herb dancer or dancers with herbs. Herbal things.
Get that.
Yeah. Oh, that's a project. Yeah.
Huh?
You're learning the language, right?
Yeah, I'm learning.
That.
I'm learning both languages. But it's still a long process. I'm learning more than the coastal Algonquin and the Muncie, but it's it's an ongoing thing. It's kind of like my dad was saying, you know, it's like you kind of implement words into your daily routine, and then you know you learning how to say prayer in the language, and then adding in different words. It's a long, you know, it's a long process, and I think we're like in a unique situation because um you know the after the after the occupation of Alcatraz,
Yeah.
you saw that especially in New York City, that and then with the Native American Freedom of Religion Act, like New York City and AICH and all these different groups, we were bringing what little bit everybody knew, you know, and then within the last like 10 or 15 years, people being able to practice their culture, now people are able to take what they've learned and apply it to their tribes, and you know, regaining stuff and reclaiming stuff, and you know, traveling to different areas to get those teachings and stuff like that. So we've traveled as far as uh the was it the Delaware, the Lenape, Delaware, to learn our language in Canada.
Yeah.
And so it's just an ongoing process, you know, to bring back the language. And um, I'm learning a lot of words and vocabulary, but I'm still learning how to like conjugate sentences and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
it's difficult.
I was wondering, because obviously, you know, I'm Mohawk, I'm Gonna so my name is Yagawihine. It means
Uh-huh.
she gathers people or she organizes people. My daughter's name is Gawanoguio. That means beautiful island. My other daughter's name is Ganiaguineta, which means she puts out the flint. She holds the flint and she puts out the flint. So all those names were handed down through the longhouse and ceremony, and clan mothers assign you to these names. So I was just wondering, in your culture, if that's something that maybe was practiced before like all the restrictions and the inability to really congregate, if that was something was a custom for your people, because you're naming your granddaughter, right? You're gonna start handing down names, right? There might be names that, you know, because in my tribe only one person can have my name. When I pass, it will be given to somebody new.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I'm just wondering if it's similar traditionally with your people prior to, you know, everybody being just so separated and disestablished.
I know in that I've found that a lot of names that are given kind of comes to the elders. So I think
Yeah.
because the elders at that point in time had a separation from the language, that you know, they gave him his name in English. I mean, our word for medicine is Wichapiko.
Yeah.
Um, but I'm not sure how to say like how you would put that with like
That's it.
somebody who carries that medicine. But even like my name is Ganuzit Anishinaabe, and that was heard by Babwe within Benesi. So I've from what I've learned is that it's kind of like the if in our teachings in the Algonquin culture is more of what the elders who have that connection still to the language and to the ancestors, what they hear your name.
Yeah.
And so I think that because at that point in time, uh the connection between our language was not really there, because it had been there had been at least one generation that didn't have access to the language, that now when those names come to us, we're able to hear it in the language. But before, you might have had to hear it in whatever the ancestors were able to give you.
Brothers were young, so.
Yeah. Yeah. Tony was just reminding me, like, when my grandfather, who spoke both languages, he passed away when my mother, and then my mother was young and her two brothers were young. So that like that broke our connection right there. Yeah.
And do you know what their names were in the language?
Oh no, they wouldn't speak anything. I mean, they wouldn't say it.
They wouldn't talk about
They
it.
wouldn't talk about it. Yeah.
Mm.
I
It was
was,
too dangerous.
yeah, I was lucky that my mother really didn't talk about being Native or anything like that, but she was. So I learned a lot just by being with her and watching her do. And then later on, elders would tell me, oh, your mother was doing this, or your mother did this. And it was normal part of like my life. So I didn't think it was like, I thought getting back to it, I thought everybody had Native clothing hanging in their house. And moving to the projects and going to play with my friends that were German next door. And it's like, you guys don't got no medicine wheels. You guys are like, where do you keep your regalia? And they're like, what are you talking about? And then I realized, like, it was that secretive that you didn't even say it outside the house. You didn't bring it outside the house. You didn't tell it, like, what do you think I am? That was like, if you do
Your
is.
mother got traumatized when they were going to take them away to Carlisle.
Yeah. I think that was the thing. Yeah, when they were taking them away, they wanted to take them away to Indian school because they couldn't find any.
Her and her brothers.
Yeah, her and her two brothers, and that's like a really
It was traumatic.
bad, traumatic and a bad story. Elma was the Ray.
No, she was.
My mother was the oldest. Okay, and then her brother Raymond was like a year younger.
And then Elma was.
Was a baby. The father died. I have pictures of him playing the ukulele and stuff, hanging out. And the mother disappeared, like poof. I woke up in the morning and she wasn't there. So they were in the house and by themselves, being self-sufficient. And then the government found out about them, that they were there and wanted to send them to Indian school. And they knew that wasn't good, because anybody they ever heard of that went to Indian school didn't come back. And the youngest was epileptic. So that's when my mother started taking care of the elders and learning medicine and doing stuff with them. But it was kind of traumatizing to wake up and it's like, you're all by yourself. And they just about away. They were ready to take him away. And then the Catholic came by, a priest came by and said, become Roman Catholics and you'll be ward to the church. We can't guarantee we're going to give you a place where you'll find a place to stay, but we can guarantee that we won't let them take you from this area. So that was the reason they do that. And they ended up staying with two great aunts, Sue and Oni, like that. And that was kind of traumatic too. They just gave them a place to stay. They didn't feed them. They didn't give them any food or anything like that. Like, you just got a place, you can stay here. And her brother, Uncle Ray they were not too far from each other. It was like a year or so apart. He ended up being a boxing punch dummy for boxers. So they would practice punching him. Sparring partner. It was a punch dummy. He didn't know how to box.
That sounds abusive.
Yeah. And that would give them money. So he got money from that and taken care of, like, my mother took care of the elderly, and that's how they survived.
Because back in those days, if you were native, job opportunities were very scarce. And so a lot of times they had to take either jobs that other people didn't want, or, you know, they had to take jobs that whatever they could get.
Yeah.
Reggie, there's like 50, I think there was 17 people on this call to be with you, to listen to you.
Oh, that's okay.
Yeah, thank you. I'm just wondering if you knew anybody, like, or if you have any good memories, like back in like the 70s or 80s with anybody on this call or in this meeting.
Oh,
Yeah, AICH in particular, in like the Native community.
As I said, I can't say enough about Alan and Louie. When we took them to AICH and they had the classes there, they basically were like, we're watching the kids. Anything they want, any problems they have, Alan was like, everybody's gonna treat the kids good. If they got anything that,
That was the Thunderbird.
yes, the Thunderbird classes, yeah. Alan and Louis were really great, and Alan in particular, he was so good with the kids, unbelievable, you know. So that was really good memories of doing the classes there and the dance classes and everything like that. And Nakoma, the Native Ed program, right?
Dad, talk about what was it like to see like Ulali and John Trudell and all these people that you knew at the community house. Like, what was it like to see them get big? And but then like I feel like there was so many people who now are like big name natives.
Oh, yeah.
But when we would see them, like more when they were big names, they would be like, "Hey, Reggie," and they all knew you. Can you talk about kind of like what was that like when knowing, you know, people who before they were famous and then like seeing them get famous? Because the community house, you know, used to have they used to do their shows there, right?
Yeah. Indian summer, that's right. Indian summer, they have people coming from all over. And then I meet him later on at the UN and different things, like years and years later. But I must say, all of them, we connected like people to people. Like Sunny and I, we just ended up like calling, "Hey, how you doing?" When she was in Staten Island, "How you doing? What's the kids up to? Hey, what's Nakoma doing?" So it just got to like a level like that. John Trudello is like, "Oh." So it's like, "Did you check out the hors d'oeuvres?" "Yeah." "Did you check out the hors d'oeuvres?" Yeah. So it just went to like, you know, "What have you been doing?" "Oh man, you've been hanging out, how's the family, blah, blah, blah." So the thing that I feel really good about is that you made all those connections, but we were just skins talking to each other, you know, and we connected on that level. When the events happen at the community house, it was like you connected on the level. It's just like, "Hey, so what's been happening with you?" You know, and if they're doing something, "Oh yeah, I'm making this record, or I'm doing so and so and so." If not, "Oh man, I got this place, this restaurant you could go to." So it was great to take and really make connections on a personal level with other Native people. You know, that was the main thing that would always impress me.
I think Buffy St. Marie was something.
Yeah.
And the
Eh?
Buffy St. Marie, was she somebody that was in and around the community in the early days? Anybody remember?
I don't remember her. She might have been, but I don't remember.
I think so.
Nadima, you remember?
Of course I do.
See?
But she was her son and my son were on Sesame Street together.
Nice.
And I actually posted pictures of that on Facebook. There's 1,000 albums. But I remember going, we went walking because the Sesame Street studios were on the west side, Upper West Side, around 79th, 86, around there, you know? And I remember us walking around February. The snow was on the side of the sidewalk. It was really cold, and it was around Valentine's Day. And she and I became very friendly. And when I went to Hawaii, I looked her up because she gave me her address. But when I got to Kauai, she wasn't there. She was moose hunting in Canada. So, but yeah, Brandon, all the kids at the community house, they were auditioned to be on Sesame Street. And Peter Jameson's son was auditioned, and a lot of other kids. And Brandon got it because he was like a real character, you know? I
He
mean,
still is.
he wasn't afraid of anything. And in fact, he almost upstaged Buffy. I've been trying to get the film of that episode. I have pictures, but
We're gonna have to do a preview of it.
And Winona too. Winona used to come to the community house
Yeah.
back in the day too.
Yeah.
You know,
which
before
Winona?
Winona LaDuke.
Yeah, because I know a couple of Winonas.
Yeah.
She
Yeah.
used to come to the community house, and it would be funny because I forget, there was one time that me and my dad went to an event and she was there and everybody was like, oh my gosh, Winona. And then my dad was like, just waved her and she's like, oh, Reggie, how are you doing? But it's just so funny because that's the way it was. You know, there's so many people who are now well-known natives in their field. But, you know, back in the day at the community house, everybody just knew each other, and you know, we went to different events and it was like nothing, you know. So it's interesting now to see people, and it's like you knew them from back in the day, you know, when they weren't as tall or their regalia wasn't as sharp, or you know.
Ganella Fritchner.
Oh yeah.
I mean, we knew her decades ago.
Yeah. And then she ended up being really a big pusher in the UN.
Yeah.
And she laid the groundwork for a lot of the work that we were able to do in the UN. But you know, we knew her before, you know, before she became so established, and she was such a great woman, especially for the youth council before she passed.
And she remembered us from decades ago.
Yeah. So what was it?
Which I found, I was very touched by that.
Yeah. I mean, there's been a lot of great experiences, you know, that my kids and my family, and as I said, my students from the Swedish Institute that were native, and they'd see me with an earring, or I'd tell them, you know, the ones that hung out, I'd say, hey, you guys want to go to a powwow? Or this is happening, and this is happening, and this is happening. And very often it would be like, yeah, we don't know anything about the community, you know, or I'm this from this, and I came here and like, I have no connection. I'd say, well, go to the community house, come to a powwow. Most common was come to the Thunderbird powwow, come to the Thunderbird dance, you know, so they would do that. And there were a number of students, not like a number of students that, you know, when I went to Albany, it was like a big deal. I had to wear a stud. I couldn't wear a dangling earring. Yeah. So now we're very lucky that we can take and show who we are and pass it on. Yeah.
What would be some advice you would give to young adults that are just stepping into leading roles in Native community? What would be some advice you would give to them to, yeah.
You have to learn some of your language, you know, whatever you can. It makes a whole different thing. I don't know if Tecumseh was at the meeting, but it makes a whole different thing if you can take and say something in your language. Governmental people look at it from a different perspective. Um, when you're dealing with people, it puts you in a whole different spot. So I would say whatever you can, any words you can, try to learn some of your language. That's a real important thing. If we get a minute, I remember the biggest thing, and Tecumseh might have been we were at a meeting at the library, the big library in Jamaica, and it was Harry was there, Harry Wallace was there, Tecumseh was there, I was there, and there's a bunch of people, that were native that were there, and they were there just to appease us because they wanted to take and open up a branch of a library and have a dedicated area to the indigenous people. Found out it was like they were going to do it way in the future. And they're talking, and then when we started introducing ourselves, when Harry started and introducing himself in the language, and then I didn't, Tecumseh did, their mouth dropped and their eyes opened, and they were like, whoa, these people are real. And it set a total different tone. So I would say to anybody, if you can learn anything of your language, that makes a big difference when you're doing stuff. Yeah. Keep the traditions alive. Yeah. Even if it's giving of thanks, the harvest festivals, and in New York, this is the New York strawberry drink. I have strawberries and a little bit of club soda in it. New York strawberry drink. So keep the stuff alive. If you can't have real strawberry drink, at least you can have soda and strawberries.
I'll make you strawberry drink this summer. I feel like you got some strawberry drink on Governor's Island at least once this past summer. Okay. Right? Last summer, did you get some, or you only went for harvest, Halloween?
No, he went for when I did the necklace making class.
Oh, I wasn't there. Okay, but I remember.
But I think he got some during that.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Your other son is here, right? Nikoma is his name.
Oh yeah. Nikoma.
He's awfully quiet. I'm wondering.
Oh wait, that's why I can't hear him.
I'm interested in your son's perspective. Like, what were the best things about their upbringing that they experienced with their dad? Tell us what life was like.
Oh no!
Oh wow!
You're gonna really get me in trouble.
I actually really enjoyed it.
I will say, yeah. Oh, get me in trouble now.
No, it was fun. I remember going to the McBurney Y and attending Louis' classes and seeing all these people. I remember when they what was it, VH1 or MTV recorded Robbie Robinson.
Oh, yeah.
And you're just like, what's going on? And the Silver Clouds were there, and I was like, who are they? And you see them talking about other things, but you're like, they're right there, like on the performance area. We're all sitting below, and then we're watching MTV and VH1 like what, a year or two later, and then we just on there, and you're like, what? I was there. That's me right there. It was really amazing, especially because everyone was really humble, and there were so many different ages. Like, there weren't that many people my age, so I had to talk to a lot of people that were either older or younger than me, and there weren't a lot of people that looked like me. I think it was just Montana. That was the only other person that was as light-skinned as me, and then there was Taj. He was, it was like only people in my age range, so it was like you saw these people that were like so much bigger than you, or so much younger than you, and you were like always in awe, but they were always normal. And they teach you little things. Like one dude, he sat me down and he taught me how to grass dance real quick, and that stuck with me for a long time. Seeing the Silver Clouds, especially when they performed in Queens and they came in their limo, I was like, that just awe-inspiring. And then, years later, I met Ed and we played together, and then I got to be on the Silver Clouds. It's amazing how many rings there are, because also, like, I was around when my dad was getting into it, and I saw, like, first he'd meet people from Swiss Institute that were Native American and bring them in. Then, you know, he goes somewhere else, like to a wicked ceremony and meet more people, you know, and like it was just all these big rings and all these people that he knew, but it's like, oh, now that I know you're Native too, like this whole other part opened. So I got to see that because a lot of the growth was happening there, you know. And it was just interesting to see, like, also the behind the scenes, you know, like the royalty families, the people that are like from afar, but they always come for all the events. Like you got to see all these different like levels and parts of Native America, which, you know, it's to see that growing up was just like mind boggling because like my dad said, it was like, I knew I was Native. People asked me what I was. I said, I'm Nakoma, you know, no matter where I am, even now, it's like, what are you? I'm like, I'm Nakoma, just Nakoma. So it was like to see all these different ideals and to see everything come together was just like, it was very humbling, but also like just awe-inspiring. Because even now, like I've had kids come up to me when I go back and they're like, I used to watch you dance. And I'm like, me? I'm some dude sitting in the Middle East. Like, what are you talking about? You know? So it's like, it's really amazing. And I think it's really important that we remember to keep that humbleness because there's so many generations watching us, both from the forward and the back. And we need to make sure that we're setting an example that they want to continue. Because that was another thing. I also saw a lot of Native groups that lost people at a certain time, you know, whether it was because they were focusing like just on the religion and the kids were running wild or funding and everything. So you really just have to like be out there, talk to everyone, you know, be as approachable as you can, just so that you stretch that arm out or you are able to inspire them to build up when you're not there.
No, thank you. Thank you. Tecumseh,
Yeah.
tell us. What was your upbringing like? What were your favorite parts about it with your dad?
I mean, I think that there's actually, you know what, my favorite part was when me and my dad actually did a workshop for Unity, which is a National Native American Youth Conference. And me and Josie had gone to Unity to do a workshop. And I got hooked and I was like, I wanna, you know, like I wanna keep coming here or whatever, because it was like an energy. And that was back when me and Josie, like Josie had started the youth council, and then I came back from school, and I was like, yeah, let's do this. And so me and Josie and a few other people brought back the youth council. But my last year going to Unity to be eligible, my dad wanted to give back to the community. So we came up with this idea of doing a workshop on encouraging Native kids to go into the medical field. So I think my favorite memory was me and my dad doing that workshop, encouraging kids to go into massage or the medicine field. And when we did that workshop, there was this point where my dad was talking about different traditional medicines and like clove and stuff like that. And the kids, each one of the kids, they like, first of all, my dad has this way where he can connect with anybody. So each one of the kids, like they just latched onto him and they were so excited, and my dad would say something and the kids would be like, oh, this is what we do in my tribe, or oh, my grandmother does this. And he was able to like explain to them basically what the uses of the different things that they're parents and grandparents used that they didn't even realize was traditional medicine. So I feel like that was my favorite moment with my dad, was being able to like make that connection with kids from many different tribes. And to like, we set out to do this workshop to encourage them that they could be native and be in the field, be in the medicine field. But it like really worked. There was like, I think there was like 35 kids in the workshop. It was like maxed out. And a lot of the kids didn't even realize how much medicine their parents had taught them. And like looking back at that, I think of how like my dad didn't know that his mom was teaching him medicine, native medicine. So I think that's like my favorite memory of my dad. But I also appreciate that my dad, you know, when I vend at powwows and when I do workshops, my dad's always with me. And when we're teaching kids or we're teaching community members, you know, or I'm like selling stuff, my dad's just always, you know, he's always with me. A lot of times when you're vending, it could be hard to drive somewhere by yourself. And yeah, you know, my dad knows so many people that when we go to these different powwows on different reservations or stuff like that, they like instantly like, oh, hey, you know. And it's funny because it's my booth, but they know my dad. So I think those are some of my favorite memories, you know, is being able to learn the culture and bring the culture back with my dad.
Nice. Thank you. Thank you. Reggie, see, that went well. You seemed a little scared. Wow. Thank you.
I didn't know if you'd get me in trouble.
No, I can't imagine you getting in trouble. I'm just wondering if anybody else has any questions or any things they want to share or say in conversation with Reggie. We're like 10 minutes away. We have time still. I feel like Nadima wants to say something. She's trying.
I see Nicole from Montaukets are on here.
Oh, Nicole.
What happened was I was looking for this prayer that Stephanie translated in your language, and I was like desperately, I probably have it on my computer because I don't have it but once I get it, I'm gonna send it to you.
Yeah. Oh, thank you.
Because it's beautiful, and it's translated by, you know, Stephanie from Connecticut. She's an elder. She's an elder in the I'm not sure if she's Pequot.
She's Mohican.
She's Mohican, right?
Yeah, her native name is Ute, which means fire.
Yeah. Well, I met her because she's friends with another friend of mine who lives in Connecticut, and I met her. I was lucky to meet her. She's such a knowledgeable woman. So I asked her to translate this prayer for me. And then Tahanish gave me a copy of it because she had given it to Tina. And she said, basically, you know, these are the basic vocabulary, and for the Shinnecock is very similar. So they gave it to me. So I'm gonna send that to you once I find it.
Thank you. We can get the emails to each one of you.
Yeah, I'll share with everybody. I mean,
yeah. Thank you, Nadima.
Mm-hmm.
Is there anybody else with any questions or comments? You raise your hand if you can't unmute.
Reggie, do you see all the people that are on? I don't know if you have the box open.
Yeah.
Okay, good. I just wanted to make sure. I just wanted to say thank you for sharing all of that, and for that piece of advice about language, because I'm someone who didn't grow up learning my language. I actually didn't start trying to learn it until I came to New York. And because it was never taught to me, although ironically my name does mean daughter in Cree, but my parents didn't, they just named me that because they heard someone else had a, like they knew someone else who had a daughter named Tanis, and they just really liked the name. And then I discovered later, well, Dad, actually it's in Cree, it means daughter in Cree, which is fitting. But anyways, I just started trying to learn as much as I could on my own, at least how to introduce myself. And I didn't take any classes or anything because I can't do, there's nobody teaching Cree out here. So I just tried to be as resourceful as I could, you know, online and listening to other speakers. And so that just really resonated with me. And what else did I want to say? Oh yeah. And as someone who is not from here, and I've been a member of the community house for about 12 years, but sort of in and out, and so much more immersed in it now. I feel just grateful to learn as much as I learned from you tonight and from everyone else who's always on these calls. So thank you all for that.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm just gonna say thank you too, Reggie. That was great. It was great to see you, and thank you for your son, because he comes to mean a whole lot to me. He really does.
Reggie, you made me laugh when you told that story about the bottle. 'Cause my grandma used to do the same thing. She put it in a paper bag and she walked out, and we lived in the projects, and she walked out with that paper bag bottle just in case anybody bothered us. That is so funny. When I heard that story, I said, oh my God, he's describing my grandmother.
That's survival.
Yeah, that's survival instinct. You know, my grandma was a little woman, but she was tough. She used to watch wrestling on Saturday nights.
Wow, thank you. Thank you everybody for being here.
Thank you.
I'm wondering, I noticed Tony was talking a bit on the side. Tony, would you like to share some of the best parts of your partnership with Reggie that you've experienced and what life was like with him?
Like,
You're gonna get me in trouble.
Well, my father-in-law was key, and he had a very traditional point of view, and he treated me like a daughter. So, you know, I was just immersed in the family, and it was a very nurturing situation. He expected us to eat with him every night, and we did. Reggie and I have been together for 48 years. So it's a lifetime. And, you know, we just wanted to raise our boys so that they could have their culture. And, you know, I just feel, you know, he's so supportive. We could do this together. And, you know, when you're raising your children, I don't know about other people, but, you know, I used to worry, are we, you know, am I doing it well enough? You know, but we were partners, and we both had the same point of view. So we just kept at it. And, you know, now that they're grown, it's like, whoo! I guess we did it okay. We did good. So
And they were good and never got in trouble.
You know, but we're so proud of our boys, you know.
Y'all did more than okay.
We're proud of both our boys.
They're great.
They're wonderful. They're absolutely wonderful. And we're so grateful that they were very tied to their community
Mhm.
and their culture. And that means the world to us because family and traditions were always important to them. And you just never know it if your children are going to value what you value. So we're both very, very pleased. And it went well.
Oh, what's that? Oh, wow. Oh, that's just how I had it planned.
But it's funny because when I was a teenager, like I mentioned when we were playing trivia, you know, you asked me what tribe Harry was, who was the chief of the Unkachugs. Well, Harry and I've known him since I was a teenager. We both went to Long Island City High School. And, you know, it's funny. My godmother always used to talk about her best friend, Matey Waters, and going to the Longhouse. Well, Matey Waters was my mother-in-law's cousin, but you know, how did I know I was going to marry Reggie at the time? You know, I was a kid. So it's just kind of interesting how your life leads you to where you end up.
Tony, do you guys have a wedding picture?
Oh, sure we do.
Can I see it?
Remember, it was back in the day.
Yeah, I want to see you guys back in the day because I was back there too.
It was back in the day.
Little further back.
Back in the day.
Which one is that?
Oh my God, look at you guys. How adorable.
It was back in
How handsome you. Handsome groom and gorgeous bride.
Thank you.
It was back in the day. Oh yeah.
Back in the day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll show you a picture of Reggie
Uh-oh. Oh,
many
that's a
years
famous picture.
ago.
That's right. Yeah, that's a famous picture. That was in a book, I think.
I don't know if you can tell how young he was here.
Oh, look at him, the handsome devil he was.
He's still handsome to me.
Say, was? Come on, Diva.
He's still,
was, yeah.
This is
Handsome devil he is then and now.
this is the love of my life.
Nice save, Diva.
Yeah. Yeah. We've had a lot of great times in the community. It really has, you know, and I've been so lucky that I hope I've touched a lot of people in, you know, in the good way. But I know that a lot of the elders and a lot of people have like changed our lives and said little things that helped us like so much and continuing to help us. I've been very fortunate to have that around.
Yeah, thank you. We're very fortunate to have you as well. Yeah, so we're gonna
Here's the little boys. I don't know if you can see that.
Oh my goodness.
Glare off of it.
Oh, hold on. Wait a minute.
Oh, yeah.
I can do that.
Oh, wow. So all the stops today.
Beautiful. Look at you, Tony.
Who's that family?
What a handsome family.
Thank you.
Who are those little guys?
Our
Who are
little
those
guys.
Yeah.
Good looking boys.
No, we've had some great times, you know. We really had some great times.
And here they are even younger. I don't know if you could.
Oh, hold it up a little bit higher. Oh, cute.
Oh my goodness.
What cuties.
They're
Look at
5 years
that.
apart.
Oh, we're not embarrassing you, Tecumseh.
Oh,
Nope.
it's part of my job.
Hey.
Melissa said I missed the one time where they were pulling out the real embarrassing pictures.
Oh yeah.
that was the last Sacred Spaces.
Yeah.
Oh, and then it was cool that well, there you know, when we were at my wedding, my dad said how special it was that we were able to do it in a traditional way, because when he was married, that they weren't able to. So I think I have a picture.
Oh, so, you got married too? You're
Yep.
married to Kamsa?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Oh,
I have a
didn't even
picture.
know that.
That's why
thought
I
he was just
corrected
a young kid,
We have
just
two
a
daughters.
young kid, not even married yet.
You should be able to screen share it, Tecumseh.
Oh, did you see it in the picture?
Oh, I just thought maybe if you had it open, I can download it here.
Yeah.
Hold on.
It was,
Was that this picture?
no, the one at
Oh.
the wedding.
Oh, at the wedding.
The wedding, yeah.
One sec.
Kamsa's wedding.
Like the Kamsa's wedding, yeah. Yeah, that's it.
Oh, what a beautiful picture.
Yeah.
What a beautiful bride. Where's she from?
The Bronx.
She's Chalagi.
She's what?
Chalagi.
Chalagi?
Cherokee.
Yeah.
And sir, her mom is also African American, and her dad is from Puerto Rico.
Yeah.
But they've been here for her dad is I think he was born in Puerto Rico, but he lived here most of his life.
She's gorgeous.
It's really nice.
I thought at first she was Shinnecock because, you know, they wear those one strap dresses.
You know what? Tahanish actually made that dress.
Oh, that's really funny. I know that Shinnecock dress.
Yeah.
Yeah, Tahanish made that dress actually as a present.
And Tony made the belts, and I made her moccasins. Tony made the
Tony who?
Tony Inus made that. No, those belts aren't the ones that Tony made though. But Tony gifted us. Tony and Sheldon actually gifted us belts at the wedding that we now use that are purple and white.
And when did you guys get married?
We got married 3 years ago. I think I might have a picture
You're newlyweds.
of us and Sheldon actually.
We're just waiting for those babies to show up.
Yeah, I would just say.
Wow, Melissa always does this. She's always like, so we have this baby basket
You know,
baking.
Indian people need to build up our population.
Yeah, to come see you, take your time. Mama never rushes you.
Anything related to babies, Melissa's always like, to come. So we have this thing that you can make this moccasin for a baby, you know, just a hint.
Yeah, just a hint.
Melissa's trying to become an auntie real quick.
Just
So
a
what
hint.
happens is when people go into like my beading program, like the extended beading program, baby moccasin making program, and the cradle board making program, especially within like a year to 2 years, there's a baby. Like four people so far, just that age, since I've been teaching.
But it comes, I'm on record as
I
never.
know being grandparents, but we do not rush our children.
He's an adult. He is not a child.
How old are you now, Tecumseh? How old are you?
I'm 30. I just turned 30 in January.
Some time.
Still our baby.
That little boy.
Here's a picture of Sheldon actually at their wedding.
Oh yeah.
Are you sharing it?
Yeah, I just shared it in the comment box.
And you got which one is it? What number?
It says the last four numbers are 7844.
All right.
All right,
Oh yeah.
yeah.
Now he's got no hair.
Yeah, I remember him there. Yeah.
That's right. You didn't wear those the belts that Tony
No.
made.
No, he gave it to us the day. That was our wedding present, actually.
Ah.
Yeah. Remember that.
Y'all had a really nice reception too.
It was fun. Good.
We were so glad you were there, Rick.
Yeah,
You and Anna.
Meant a lot. It was really nice.
It was really good. Yeah.
Meant a lot having you there.
Yeah, there was a lot of people from the
A lot of
community
people,
and the community house.
Well, the
A lot of your
Couture,
family.
the whole Couture came.
And people from Montauk and Poospatuck and Shinnecock.
Yeah.
Yep,
Had a lot of people there.
yep. It was packed.
Ramapo.
Also, who's the elder that drove just to take the
Oh, it was the elder. It was the elder from Poospatuck. It was I forget what his Lance.
No,
Lan-
no.
It wasn't
No, it was
Ken.
Ken Smith.
Yeah, Ken Smith.
Yeah.
He drove. Where did he drive from? He was in Florida or something.
No. He was out. He drove from Poospatuck.
Oh yeah.
He was, I think, 93 at the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he drove just to take and see the ceremony, the wedding. And he said, I wanted to be there. I had to be here. So he came, just to see a ceremony.
Who officiated?
Harry and Lisbeth.
Oh, really?
Yeah, Harry did the native part of the ceremony, and then Lisbeth did the officiating legally. She did
The
like our
legal,
court
'cause
paper.
she's-
Yeah, our court paper stuff.
She's
A judge.
She's a judge now.
Yep,
Yeah.
in the Bronx. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh no, sorry. I think she just got promoted actually. But yeah, she's a judge. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember her back in the day when she was working with Tanya at the community house.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
They make a nice couple, Harry and her.
Hey, Auntie.
Hi, how are you?
Hi, Auntie Ann.
Good to see you, T. Good to see everyone.
Hi, Anna.
Blessings to everyone. Hi, Nadima.
Hey, they get excited to see you. They could care less about me.
No, we like your
No,
we
no,
like
it's
his
not me.
Anna, we like his spiffy haircut.
They don't
You
care.
like his haircut, right?
We really like that haircut.
Okay.
That's a handsome man.
Right? That's what I think. 30 years this year.
Nadima, you just say that because I'm another green
When
eyed
did you get married as children?
Our kids like T keep us young.
Huh?
That's who keeps us young. Oh,
I'd
yeah.
like to see your wedding picture too.
Yeah.
Oh, Rick's gonna have his storytelling night one night.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's been waiting to be an elder.
Oh wow.
We'll make him an official elder for the night.
We're giving you a couple of weeks, Rick.
I got nothing to say.
Okay, so we're a little bit past time, which is okay. But we just want to thank each and every one of you. Reggie, you have a beautiful family. You did an amazing job with your sons. I know Tecumseh personally, and he's amazing. Thank you.
Thank you.
I want to also maybe take a few moments just to do a weekly recap of our updates that are happening soon. And Tanis will take that away, but just after that, we're gonna shut down the live. And then if you all want to, or if you want to stay and hang out and talk more, we can do that as well. So yeah, thank you.
Great, thanks, Melissa. Okay, today's Wednesday. So that means tomorrow's Thursday. Means we have our new series, our second edition of Native Theater Thursdays. I don't know if that's the official title yet, but it's catchy, so I'm using it for now. And we are reading 3 short plays. 2 are by Vicky Ramirez, and 1 is by Ty Defoe. I'm in 2 of them, and a bunch of our other community members are taking part in them as well. It starts at 8 o'clock, should be around under an hour and a half. And then Friday, we have another Fit Native class at noon. And Saturday, we have our Sacred Spaces Elders Talking Circle, Saturday and Sunday at noon. And then Sheldon Raymore is doing his Facebook Live updates on Sunday at 3:00. And then Monday, we have Fit Native class again. Tuesday is Tatiana Benali's social justice series, but I'm not sure if she has chosen a topic for next week yet. So we'll keep you updated on that. And we'll see you next Wednesday also for another elder storytelling.
Very good, good.
Okay, I'm going to hop off the live YouTube.